Welcome back to an epic workout, everybody. I'm Alex Iglesia, and epic workouts and waking up particular themes are all about using your body to slow things down enough because our minds are so fast to deeply transform yourself around a theme. We want to expand your emotional capacity, expand your energetic resilience, and have new insights by making the space for a particular pattern to show up in your life more. Because we have ways that we shut stuff down in ourselves and we have ways to open them back up. Today is about independence, and it's the sensitivity to wake up your independence. Where are you waking it up out of? Codependence. Have you ever been codependent? Have you ever been too reliant on somebody else to meet your needs and you gave up a sense of power? How did you get that back? Did you leave the relationship and just create a new one? Did you have an uncomfortable conversation? Did you negotiate a new deal? Did you just shift something in yourself and just take the power back? We have a lot of options, but without a sense of sensitivity, without a sense of the relationship of the part that we play in the whole, it's kind of difficult to grow our independence. Now, I remember early in my marriage having an intuitive sense as well as a research sense of the journey of relationship, that we're going to go somehow from how we're codependent with each other to a sense of supporting each other's independence, finding out what we want, learning who we are, healing ourselves from our past, building our careers, and then ultimately developing more and more interdependence. And that's very much what the 19th hexagram is going to be about. So let's dive in. We're going to do a few mobility movements. I'm going to show you the embodied story of the 19th hexagram, 19th human design key, gate, and 19th gene key. And then we'll come back after the mobility and do a deeper dive. Now, trigger warning in general, when we do the deeper dive, I'm going to actively take us through freeze and flight and fight, and ultimately a sense of flow to working with people, to social engagement with people. So inspired by the polyvagal theory, I'm going to touch on those. Now, this is only a 15-20 minute video and experience, so we're not going super deep, but I want to let you know that this is not just a workout. Here we go. So the embodied story of the 19th hexagram starts on the bottom trigram, ends in the top trigram, but we're also going to do the reverse. So we're starting with yang, yang, yin, forward, up, and narrow. And this is a sense of coming up in the world as an active agent and making a difference, making a specific contribution. Is there a specific contribution you're struggling with? Is there a specific contribution you're committed to? So bring that to mind already. Make this valuable and relevant already. When you come forward, when you're active with your spine, a bit of an extension in the spine, when you come together in a specific narrow kind of way, you're bringing your whole body, mind, and connection into alignment, or at least you're inviting your whole body, mind, and soul into alignment with the choice to be in the game, making a contribution. And you can change the words, impact, making a difference, serving, all of that, doing something purposefully. So this is our beginning. I, as a part, step into the space with others, into the whole, into the mission of the organization, into the flow of consciousness, into the evolution of the, like whatever the context is, you got the idea? I, as a part, step into this whole. Now, what's the whole that we're stepping into? Where are we going with this contribution? Well, the top trigram is yin, yin, yin. In yin, 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 it's back, down, and narrow. It's sort of like a standing child pose. We flex the spine, bend the knees, soften and trust gravity. And we're inviting a space, inviting a state of softness and allowing and accepting and embracing. This is where we let go of story and too much narrative, and we focus on sensation, deep feeling. The world can do whatever it needs to do. We can be with all of it. That's the part of the practice of this state. Very helpful state, very restorative state. If you've ever slowed things down and taken a pause, if you've ever contemplated or meditated for more than a few minutes, you know the power of this. Now, we call this sponge when we're using UZAZU, and UZAZU being the mind-body modality that I'm using, we're going to use it. So we call this sponge, and we call this channel. So we're sponging and we're channeling. So what is the embodied story? Well, there's two pieces for today. First, the whole, top down, is the whole, the sponge, the feelingness of the whole is supporting you, or me in this case, contributing. So sponge is supporting your channel. Feeling and sensing the whole is supporting the thing you're up to. Extremely powerful. If you've got any challenges receiving support, you're gonna work it out here. If you have any challenges receiving, you're gonna work it out here. Because to receive, you, a worthy individual, receives from the totality, unconditionally, in this place of sponging. So sponge steps into the part of the channel. Okay, that's part one. Part two is, hey, where are you? Where are you going? Well, you're making a difference. You're making a contribution, supported by that whole, supported by willing to feel everything. You're making a difference, supported by the willingness to feel anything. Extremely resilient, extremely anti-fragile. Here you are. You're working on your thing. You're writing every day. You're making new deals. You're doing something new. You're doing what you're doing that is purposeful. Where are you going? Well, you're going into a world that can receive you. So we go from channel back to the sponge. So let's make this really simple. Sponge, channel, sponge. Look at the body. Flexion, extension, flexion. We can even take a couple steps. Flexion, extension, flexion. We can move with this. There's a few reasons to do that I won't cover in this video, but that can be a really good part of this. So now that I've covered the general embodied story here, we also can really quickly reflect on, so somehow the journey from codependence to independence to interdependence has a lot to do with the whole of being sensitive, with the world receiving you, actually supporting you in what you're up to, and what you're up to supporting the whole. Now, you've probably heard that if you've done any personal growth work, any spiritual development, but this is very much this pattern for the 19. Let's do a little bit of mobility. We're going to let go of those movement patterns, but break down a few of them. First thing is in the hips. Let's start by checking out how it feels to extend by sticking your butt back, bending your knees, and extending your spine, and then flexing through the spine. So see how that feels. And then see how does it feel to create flexion in the shoulders and a little bit of extension in the shoulders. And then put them together. Everything flexes, everything extends. Now let's break down with 3 movements. The first one is in the hips. Bend a knee, you're going to balance on one leg, touch something if you need some balance support. Reach back, extend through your butt, activate your glutes. Try not to overdo it in your low back. And just bend, flex, and extend and straighten a few times. Don't worry about counting. Do look for it getting a little bit easier. If you're not doing it too hard or too high, it should feel like you're getting better at it. Try a few where you slow it down just a few times. And then switch legs. So flexion activates your psoas and your hip flexor. Extension activates your glutes, your erectors, your low back. When you activate both of these sides, you make this joint more stable. Your brain says stability makes for safety, and you get a bit stronger. The joint gets a bit more stable. And then you're able to get more range of motion. So anytime you're struggling to get more flexible or to feel stronger, more confident in a particular area of your body, make sure you're activating both directions of the joint. You'll create more stability, and the safety will allow for more range of motion. Okay, that's part one. Part two is a move from yoga tune-up called pranic bath. There's a little bit of there's a few things to this, but it's a fun one once you get it. Palms up. Take your palms up and over your head. Flip your hands. Reach up. And then arms down. So we've got palms up, behind your head, up above your head, and out. So you can see the whole movement. There are a lot of movement patterns happening. The emphasis right now for me, my intention for you, is mobility at the shoulder level. Now there's a lot going on with your elbows and your wrists, but for the most part, shoulder. Now, if you've got great mobility, the next thing to start to pay attention to is keep your core stable. Don't let it move too much. By making your core just a bit more stable, you're asking for your shoulders to do more. You're requiring more of your shoulders. If you let your spine flex and extend with this, then the shoulders aren't doing all that they could. So we're creating a sense of independence at the shoulders instead of codependence. If I'm tight in the shoulders, then I'm going to get the movement out of my ribs, out of my thoracic spine. If I can mobilize at the shoulders, I can have independent moving parts. Mobility is one of the greatest metaphors for moving from codependence to independence at the brain level of understanding the movement, but also at the tissue level and the joint level of getting things to work harmoniously instead of all gunked up. And relax. How's that feel? Our last movement is pure flexion and extension of the spine. I'm going to suggest you do it like this. Have your hands on your thighs. Bring your heart forward. Bend your knees as much as you need to. It's going to make your butt stick out and a big arch in your low back. Then take your heart and think about the back of your heart. Reach the back of your heart, back of your ribs back. It's going to drop your chin down. So think of pulling at the heart and then pulling at your mid-back. Let the rest of your body just go with the flow. Make the move gently bigger. You're going to end up going into more of a fold and into more of an extension. As long as it doesn't hurt, explore how big this movement can be. Okay, great job. Now I'm going to give you one exercise. Now this is an exercise you can add weights to. You can add dumbbells, you can add bands. The exercise is really similar to the movement pattern of going from sponge to channel and back. I'm going to put 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. Not by a lot, just 1 foot a little bit in front of the other. Narrow enough that, narrow and wide enough that you feel like you have good balance. So don't challenge your balance too much with this. From here, we're going to reach down. If you had weights, you'd be holding dumbbells about knee height. And then come forward and reach as high as you can go. So from first position here, everything bent, to second position, up and tall. Do 5 and then switch your legs. One of the things this is really great for athletically and functionally is you've got this split stance. So it's very normal to need to figure out how to move with one foot forward and one for the other. Great. It's a great movement to strength training condition. So switch your legs, bend it all, and up you go. Should also challenge your hip extension and your range of motion in the leg that is further back. Okay, good. So that's a really, really powerful, functional, high leverage exercise if you start to do it with some weights. Are you ready? We're now prepared for the deep dive. But before we do a quick test. I asked you earlier to feel your flexion and feel your extension. And hopefully it feels different and a bit more open now, more available. One of the things that's, just in case it's not obvious, one of the things I'm doing here is we're mapping mobility to the embodied story so that the exercise has some relationship to the deeper thematic evolution that we're working with. The exercise is becoming transformational or evolutionary by mapping those. Okay, let's do a deeper dive. We start with sponge and invoke a sense of feeling everything. So words for that could be, I'm willing to feel everything. And you turn your attention to your sensations. Shift now to channel. Some words here are, I'm making my contribution. I'm in the game. And let's come back to sponge. So supporting the contribution with feeling. Supporting the contribution with feeling. Come to channel. Contributing to a world that receives. Contributing to a world that receives. So now that we've laid the rails, so to speak, for your consciousness to work with this relationship of support and contribution, now let's touch in on codependence and independence. We'll do that by moving through the movement and adding in a few words. We start with sponge, move gently to channel, pause a moment, back to sponge. Okay. So everywhere there's been codependence that's unresolved, codependence from support, codependence in contribution, willing to feel it all now, willing to make a difference about it. Everywhere that codependence is still in my nervous system, willing to feel it all now, make a contribution to changing it, to caring, to kindness, and to receive that totally. Now, everywhere that I have had freezing in the nervous system when it comes to being independent, willing to feel it, and feel that freeze, let it melt. We step into contribution. Keep feeling. And as you find more flow, step back into the sponge. all the fight stored in the past and the memories in the nervous system that's been trying to be a contribution. Allow it to resolve, dissolve, and any other new independent contribution. I welcome that. For the whole. Now, feeling any flight, any remaining flight that's unresolved and incomplete, for any purpose, feeling the support of that flight, even if it was mistaken in any way, or old or protective. Allow all that feeling to support the new contribution, the new choice, new way of being in the game. And that to be received by that whole, by the mission, by the clients, by the people. One last round. Stepping into interdependence, a sense of safety being with people. Allow this support of feeling, the state of wholeness to support your contribution. You step into this space knowing we're playing an interdependent game. Even if it doesn't always feel like it, we can know it. And what can we embody about it today? Remember that feeling of support, the quality of feeling it all, supporting your contribution. Let this contribution breathe. And stay here a few more moments, knowing that this is now making a difference for the whole, giving back to that which supported you in some direct or indirect way. Land back in your sponge. As if you're going to bed at night, reflect a moment on the many contributions you've made. The contribution you've given to yourself with your body now. The contribution of the last few days to your goals, to other people's well-being. And release the posture. Fix your shirt, shake your body out, and let yourself be still for a moment. You've now meshed these states that on one hand are just feeling and doing, and yet together in this particular way make up the journey of codependence to independence to interdependence. It allows you to develop the sensitivity that you actually have. You are a sensitive being. You're human. And there's things you're uniquely sensitive to. So keep practicing what you're sensitive to. How else can you build skill and independence? Recently, Elon Musk was asked, what words of encouragement would you give to someone who wanted to have a startup? His response, I thought, was perfect for this. It's a little bit nuanced. The response was, if you need words of encouragement to start a business, don't do it. And what I want to say to you is, whatever you don't need words of encouragement for, go do it. Whatever you don't need other people's support for, go do it. And then receive everybody's support. Receive words of encouragement. Receive the words of affirmation and let yourself be loved and your vision be contributed to. If this practice served you, great. If you can think of some people that you think would really benefit, share it with them if you want. More importantly, share yourself. You've got so many gifts. Who knows how much time we have left? And what are you going to do with your time? Feel deeply, contribute everything you've got, and have a great time playing your bigger game.